What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my review of the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. Now, as the name implies, this device is the successor to last year's Galaxy A52 5G. And for the most part, this phone is really more of an evolution from that device rather than a complete redesign. Now, if you're really curious about all the various changes from this device compared to its predecessor, I have already done a dedicated comparison video on the channel, so definitely check that out. But I'm definitely expecting the Galaxy A53 5G to be a very successful device for Samsung this year, considering that they're really giving us a lot of value for a fraction of the price compared to one of their flagship devices. Now, if you do end up getting the Galaxy A53 5G, the first thing you'll notice is that the box is a fraction of the size of what we're used to. And the reason for that is because we're actually not getting a USB wall adapter included in the box. We do, however, get a double-sided USB-C cable for charging and data transfer, we have a quick start guide, and we have a SIM card removal tool. But that's all that's included. Now, based on where you're getting the Galaxy A53 5G, pricing could differ, but if you do end up getting the phone directly from Samsung, it does feature an MSRP of $449. Now keep in mind though, that you can bring the price down on the device, most likely by trading in another phone. So in general, I definitely recommend taking a look at the links in the video description to see the most up-to-date pricing, deals, and promotions available for this device, because that does tend to change as time goes on. Now with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, we have a very large 6.5-inch display. And this display features Corning Gorilla Glass 5, which makes it really durable. Now the display itself is Super AMOLED. It does feature a 120Hz refresh rate, so a really smooth experience when navigating around the operating system here, which is really nice. The display is 1080p. We have a PPI of 405, a 20:9 aspect ratio, so a more narrow but taller form factor, but that is very consistent with pretty much all of the mid-range and upper-end phones that Samsung has launched in the last couple of years. And we're getting an 85.4% screen-to-body ratio. So despite this being a mid-range phone, we have really small bezels all throughout, which is great. And then up top here, we have a hole punch for the front-facing camera. Now that front camera is 32 megapixels, and later on in the video, I'll be showing you a variety of different image samples from all the various cameras on this device. Now, one thing that I'm especially impressed about, and this is actually very similar with the previous generation to this device, and even the generation prior to that, but I really like how small the hole punch is for the front camera. I think sometimes that's a little bit underappreciated in the sense that with many other devices, even if they do have a hole punch for the front camera, it's usually a lot larger than that. So I appreciate that despite having the hole punch for the front camera, it's really unintrusive and really easy to forget about it even being there at all, which in my opinion is a really good thing. I'm certainly not a fan of Apple's approach, where they still give us a really large notch at the top of the phone. But seriously though, I'm amazed at how premium the Galaxy A53 5G feels. Now, if you were to put a phone case on this device and pretty much conceal the actual look and design of it, I would expect this device to be much more expensive than it is, especially considering how fantastic this display looks and how great the colors look due to it being AMOLED. Now the Galaxy A53 5G is offered in two different storage configurations. You can get it in 128 gigabytes or 256 gigs. But what's awesome is that this phone also supports microSD card expansion. So if you do find yourself filling up all the internal space on the device, then you can always add in a microSD card to offload photos and videos, for example. Now with this device, there is no wireless charging, but we do have a fingerprint sensor built into the display. And it's actually pretty fast and responsive, despite it not being an ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. Now, if you're not aware, ultrasonic fingerprint sensors are the technology that you'd find in a more premium Android device, like the S22 for example. But even with this in-display fingerprint sensing technology that's not quite as modern or cutting edge as what you find in the more expensive devices, it still works very well, and it's definitely very consistent and accurate. And then another awesome thing too about this device is that it also supports Face Unlock. So I appreciate that we have multiple methods for accessing the phone. Now taking a look at the camera module on the back of the device, we do have a quad camera setup. We have a 64 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle camera that can capture images at up to 123 degrees. We have a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera and a 5 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. And this device does support portrait mode for both the rear and front cameras. Now here's how things look on the camera app on the device. This is with the main camera right now. Then from here we can switch over to the ultra wide angle camera to fit a lot more content into the frame. I'm certainly glad that we do have the ultra wide camera on this device, as I certainly don't feel like it's a gimmick. I personally use that all the time on any phones that have that feature, and it's especially useful if you want to take photos outdoors, as you can capture a lot of your surroundings. So maybe you're on vacation, for example, and there's a large building that you want to take a picture of. That's really where the ultra wide camera comes in handy. But then from here, we can go over to the More tab, and then we can access the macro mode to take close-up images, but still have them be very crisp and clear. In addition to that, we can go over to portrait mode to get those nice blurred out backgrounds, and then we can flip around to the front-facing camera to do the same thing. So we can take really good-looking portrait selfies, or if you want to, you can just take standard selfies as well, and you can even crop out a bit to take a group selfie. Now in general, I've been very happy with the photo and video quality from the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. Now I did recently post some photo samples on Twitter, and a lot of people were very impressed as well about the quality. So I think that goes to show that Samsung did make some meaningful improvements here with the A53 5G, but I'll really let you be the judge. Based on these photo samples, what do you think? Now compared to a $1,000 higher-end flagship smartphone, I certainly don't think the images are nearly as good, but for a device that's essentially half the price, I'm more than impressed and satisfied with it. And I was especially surprised by how good of quality the macro camera is on this device, as that tends to be a feature that smartphone manufacturers include, but don't always actually try to make good. But in this situation, the macro camera is actually surprisingly great. But let's now take a look at some video samples from the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with a front-facing 4K test video from the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. Definitely curious to know what you think of both the video and audio quality. And here is a 4K test video using the main rear camera with the Galaxy A53 5G. What's awesome is that we can actually switch to the ultra-wide camera while recording a video. So now, this is with the ultra-wide camera itself. And then here's a test video recorded in 1080p with the rear camera with the Galaxy A53 5G. I want to also throw in this 1080p test because I know sometimes things like video stabilization and autofocus can be a little bit different when recording in 1080p compared to 4K. But we do have very fast and accurate autofocus on the device, which is great. And then we'll switch over to the ultra-wide camera. Now, as far as processor and RAM go with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, this device is offered in either 6 or 8 gigabytes of RAM if you get the 128 gigabyte or 256 gigabyte model of the phone. So if you get the lower storage configuration, you'll be getting less RAM, and then if you get the higher storage configuration, then you will get those extra 2 gigs of RAM. Now the processor that we're getting here is the Samsung Exynos 1280, and with that processor, as the name of the phone does imply, we do get 5G compatibility. So if you do want to use this phone on your carrier's latest 5G network, then you can certainly do so. Now I did run a Geekbench 5 benchmark test with this device, and I'll show you the scores from that test right now. But essentially, I got a single core score of 741 and a multi-core score of 1878. Now again, compared to a $1,000 smartphone, a device that's essentially double the price of this phone, these scores are not nearly as good. But for a mid-range phone, which this device is, I'm really happy with these scores. And in general, between those scores and my experience from using the device, this phone runs extremely smoothly, and I would say for pretty much 99 or 98% of people out there, this phone will be plenty good when it comes to performance and speed. There's really only a small number of reasons that I could think of for why you'd need a device more powerful than this one. Maybe you're constantly on your smartphone. Maybe you do social media management for a living. I could certainly see in situations like that, you would want a more powerful device. Possibly if you're really into high performance gaming or you like to do video editing on your phone, I could see where you also would want a more powerful processor. But for most people doing the most common tasks, such as phone calls, text messages, browsing the web, going on social media, and watching video content, this phone is going to be plenty powerful, and you're certainly not going to be disappointed. Now, video recording with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G maxes out at 4K with both the rear and front cameras, which is especially impressive for a mid-range device. And with this phone, we're getting a very large 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery. And this device does support up to 25 watt fast charging. Now, of course, we don't even have a charging adapter included in the box at all. And you could use your existing wall adapter with this phone, but keep in mind that if your wall adapter doesn't support 25 watt fast charging, then you won't be able to take the full advantage of that feature with this device. So you will have to go out and find a faster wall adapter that does support the full 25 watts. Now, the software with this device is Android 12, running Samsung's One UI 4.1. Now, if you've used any Samsung device over the last several years, the experience here will definitely feel very familiar to you, as they really haven't changed a ton. They've just made small improvements as time has gone on, further refining their software. And again, I'm really happy with the performance and optimization of the software, and it certainly seems like Samsung went the extra length to really make sure that all the bugs and various issues were ironed out. Not that there are really any issues in the first place, but we often see when new smartphones are launched, within the first several months, there's lots of different issues and glitches, but thankfully that's not present here with the Galaxy A53 5G. I suppose that's not really surprising though, as Samsung has been creating Android smartphones for well over a decade, so they're really bringing a lot of experience to the table here with this device. Now with the A53 5G, we are getting NFC, which is great. So if you do like to use Samsung Pay, for example, you can do that here with this phone. The device also is IP67 dust and water resistant, which means that you can go underwater for up to 1 meter for up to 30 minutes. Another awesome thing too, which I'll be showing you in a second when I do a video test on the phone, is that this device does have stereo speakers. So when you're listening to audio, whether it's playing a video or playing music, you'll be getting audio coming out of both the main speaker on the bottom and the earpiece up top. Now, for the most part, you really only find that feature with higher end, mid-range, and of course, flagship devices, but stereo speakers are pretty much absent from pretty much all lower end budget phones. Now, taking a closer look at the hardware of the device, I already talked quite a bit about the front panel here, but again, we have small bezels all throughout. We also have a very small hole punch for the front-facing camera, and this display looks amazing, and it runs very smoothly at 120 Hz. Now, on the left side of the phone, we have nothing. Then on the right side of the phone, we have volume up and volume down. We also have the power button. Then up top here, we have the noise canceling microphone. And then on the bottom of the phone, we have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card, microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and the speaker. And then on the back of the phone, we have the camera module and Samsung logo, and that's pretty much it. Now, you probably noticed that there is no 3.5mm headphone jack with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. And that's probably the biggest downgrade compared to last year's device, considering that with the A52 5G, we did get a 3.5mm headphone jack. But it looks like with the direction that things are going, we likely will never see those again with future generations of Samsung smartphones. So I suppose it's time to move on to Bluetooth earbuds. But for me personally, I do prefer to have the choice, but considering that we don't actually have a 3.5mm headphone jack on this phone, we don't really get that choice unless we want to use some sort of adapter to plug traditional headphones into the USB-C port. Now, even though this device is made out of plastic, the actual build and look of it do appear to be very premium, and this phone also feels of good quality. It certainly doesn't feel cheap by any means. And of course, if you want to compare build quality to Samsung's S22 series, you're going to find those phones to feel even more premium because they are made of higher end materials. But I'm totally happy with what we're getting here with the A53 5G. And I'm especially happy with this material on the back of the phone, as it is a matte finish, and it doesn't pick up any fingerprints at all. So despite me using this phone quite a bit, and of course holding it in my hand all throughout this video, you can't really see any fingerprints anywhere, which is really great, especially compared to a device that has a glossy back, for example, that you typically get with a $1,000 smartphone, for example. But that being said though, even though this is a lower end phone, it actually does have quite a few interesting features that does. Video content looks amazing on the Super AMOLED display, and audio quality is also really good thanks to this device having stereo speakers. So in general, if you want to get the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G primarily to watch video content, then certainly in that situation, this phone is a really good choice. And then of course, with this phone having such a large display at 6.5 inches, it really gives you a very immersive experience. And in situations like watching videos online, you can even crop in further to fill up the entire display, which I know you can do on pretty much any Android device, but especially with this device, with that small hole punch for the front-facing camera, you really get a great experience when watching videos on this phone. So in conclusion, Samsung really didn't bring much new to the table with this device compared to its predecessor, but at the same time, the Galaxy A53 5G builds upon Samsung's really strong mid-range portfolio of Android devices. So in general, I'm really happy with this phone, and if I had to guess, this is going to be a very popular device all throughout 2022. But this concludes my review of the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. If you want to learn more about this device, definitely watch all the various videos about it on my channel, as I have quite a few already, and make sure to take a look at the various links in the video description to see the most up-to-date pricing and availability for the device. But this is Kevin here, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.